Good evening, and this is the Candidates Corner with Dan Jennings. Tonight on the show, we have Kelly Smith running for the Florida State Legislature out of District 38. Good evening, Kelly. How are you tonight?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what is motivating you to run.
Sure. So my name is obviously Kelly Smith. I live in Pasco County, Florida, which is the county just north of Tampa and the surrounding area. And I live there with my husband, Patrick, and we have three children who are now 13, 14, and 15. We adopted them as toddlers, so I can't take blame or credit for the spacing of that. I've spent pretty much my entire career in land use and planning. I started out in municipal government and then went to the private side with a civil engineering firm and have been an operations coordinator at an international transportation engineering firm for the last 10 years when my husband and I moved with our kids to Wesley Chapel from the Naples area of Florida. And the reason that I am running in this special election is because I have a firm belief that elected officials are public servants and that our current legislators, most of them have forgotten that. And in Pasco County especially, I think that's starting to be a legacy issue, that we've had just decades of elected officials who are really looking at how they can improve their status in life and not necessarily looking at the reasons that they're in elected office.
I think we see that across the country. So this wasn't on my list, but since you brought that up,
Sure.
how would you feel about term limits?
So I generally agree with term limits, but I wouldn't agree with I know usually it's proposed as like a 2-year term limit. That's actually a pretty big issue right now in the Florida legislature. They're looking at putting term limits on school board members, which I'm not really sure why school board members, other than it seems like that, from what I've been told, it doesn't have the turnover rate that other elected offices have. But in learning more about that issue, I've also learned that a lot of legislators will say it takes 6 years to really understand how the process works and what you're doing and how to be an effective legislator. So I wouldn't cap it necessarily at 8 years. But I do think that there is it's not always a good idea to have the same person in office for their entire career in the same seat.
Agreed.
Yes.
In May of 2013, the BOCC promised to change the land development code to protect residents nearby the Lago Verde mine. But recently we've seen seismic events being caused, most likely due to blasting by that mine. Do you think it's time for the Florida legislature to step in to do something to protect homeowners?
I do think that the Florida legislature should take a look at this issue. I have followed the mine operating process, approval process in that area, since, for 2 years now. And, there are some anomalies in the way that particular mine is operated and the number of times they blast per month, whereas other mines typically blast a limited number of times per year. And the other thing, if people listening don't know, Pasco County has a really large area of sinkholes. And so the seismic issue is definitely a concern. We had a very significant sinkhole not too terribly far away from the mine areas last year that actually took out 7 homes. It was a big, a very very large sinkhole, and and it's not uncommon to have sinkholes throughout Pasco County, and so we definitely have to be looking at how are we impacting our continuously settling earth.
The Liberty Council has been bringing immense pressure to bear upon the school boards in Pasco County to push anti-LGBTQ policies. Do you believe these issues should be left up to the school districts, or should this be settled at a state level?
That's a really good question. You know, I do believe that the local level is the more appropriate place for those issues to be decided, but I do think the state can offer a certain level of guidance. My concern would be that, you know, the organizations like the Liberty Council are targeting local school boards and trying to bully them into making decisions that are not not consistent with what the community wants and with what the, you know, what's in the best interest of the students. So I think there's probably a balance that needs to happen there.
Mm-hmm. On to charter schools.
Yes.
They're a highly, I don't want to say controversial, but highly debated as to their place in our educational system. What would you like to see done with charter schools?
So this is a very big topic for a lot of reasons, and it's one that actually has impacted my family personally. As I said, my children were adopted through the foster care system as toddlers. Because of their early childhood experiences, they have varying levels of developmental trauma and residual mental health issues. And even the special needs that are provided for in the public school system they're not, even the trying to describe how this, so if you fit into one of their big special education boxes, then they do a really good job, even though they're woefully underfunded and they could use, you know, a zillion times more resources than they have.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a special situation that doesn't fit into one of those boxes, like attachment trauma, then the school district is just simply not funded with enough resources to be able to handle those situations. So two of my children have used what's called the Step Up for Students scholarship. It's the tax scholarship to allow them to go to private school, and they qualify because they were adopted through foster care. They did not qualify because of our income. And we have had our kids in nonprofit charter schools also, in addition to public schools. I will be so excited when I can send my youngest son, who is currently the only one in private school, when I can send him back to the public school. I will be really excited because that means that we have put public education back in the priority and we have funded it appropriately. We've provided not only the student-teacher ratio, but the number of guidance counselors and psychologists and other support staff that today's kids need. It's not an option. The kids are experiencing a lot of grown-up situations that they're just not mentally equipped to handle.
Agreed.
And that needs to happen in school. So it's a long answer to the question, but basically I think public education absolutely first and foremost is the priority, and in fact, providing a safe, accessible, high-quality public education is one of only two things that are required by the state legislature in the state constitution. So they're not doing that. They're failing. I believe that there is a place for nonprofit charter schools. Those schools often provide a little bit more of a niche that can accommodate certain kids that wouldn't be accommodated in the general public school system. In Pasco County, we have some really interesting nonprofit charter schools, including one that only takes kids with special needs. So
Really?
there are some really interesting and good charter school, nonprofit charter schools. For-profit charter schools, I'm completely against, because that's just another way to privatize education. And you know, if somebody wants to go to private school, I think that's a great option for some kids, but it shouldn't be at the detriment to the public school system.
Totally agree with that.
Yes.
Especially as the father of a special needs child myself. So,
yeah.
And after what the both said today, well, yeah, we're going to need all the help we can. So.
Oh yes.
All right, one final question. and then
Yes.
I will let you get off to your meeting.
No problem.
Climate change is going to be a major issue for Florida due to its vast coastlines.
Mhm.
Flooding and hurricanes are likely to get worse. How would you balance the creation of new evacuation routes with the need to conserve wildlife corridors?
So that is obviously a big issue. It's a big issue in Florida. It's a really sensitive issue in Pasco County because we have the Suncoast Parkway, which goes through part of Pasco County. They want to extend it, and I know in the Florida legislature there's a bill to extend the Suncoast Parkway all the way to the Georgia border. And there really does have to be a balance between the hurricane evacuation needs and the wildlife corridor. I think that, we really need to look at, is that evacuation route really needed? Are there other things that we could do? Are there more opportunities to implement the, I don't remember what they call it, but where you basically open up both sides of a road or a highway for northbound traffic or southbound traffic, depending on the hurricane evacuation routes. I think we need to look at our existing infrastructure in ways that we can move people through more quickly, because the other problem with creating additional roadways is that you then have to have additional gas stations so that people don't get stranded on those roadways. And that just leads to, then more fast food restaurants, and before you know it, every single area of Florida is just one urban sprawl connected to another.
Mm-hmm. Very true. All right, well, we are going to let you get off to your meeting, and thank you very much for being on the show with us tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
When is your election date? I'm sure our listeners know.
The election is June 18th. This is a special election, so that's why it's a quicker one. It's not a November date, so very much looking forward to June 18th.
And that is not a primary, that's a general.
No, so actually the primary is April 9th.
Okay.
I do not have a primary opponent.
Oh, very good.
So yes, so I'm already looking to June 18th.
That's awesome. Well, we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And that is it for the Candidates Corner tonight. Our guest was Kelly Smith, running for Florida in House District 38. For the Blue Wave Report, I am Dan Jennings, reminding you as always, don't just comment, act. Good night, everybody.